Hello and welcome back to The Calm in the Complicated. I'm Carrie Grant and I'm here with our knowledgeable Cerebra ambassador, Samantha Flynn.
Oh, you're too kind.
Now today we're talking about the side of being a parent carer that nobody warns you about, the life admin. The second full-time job we never applied for. We're talking about the endless forms, the folders of medical reports, the EHCP battles, and the constant feeling that you're managing a small corporation rather than a family. It can be absolutely soul-destroying when you just want to be a mum or a dad. How can we keep our heads above the water, though, when the paperwork starts to feel like a mountain? Well, we're very lucky to have Rachel Wright with us today. Rachel is the founder and director of Born at the Right Time, an organisation dedicated to improving the lives of people with disabilities and their families. She's a qualified nurse, married to a GP, and mum to several children, some of who are neurodivergent and one who has profound and complex disabilities. With over 25 years nursing experience and over 20 years parenting a child with complex needs, she really knows what this admin burden feels like. Rachel, welcome to the village. I feel like this really is respite care. We've just got you out the house. Have a rest now from all of that.
It's been lovely.
For parents that are watching or listening to the podcast that are just at the beginning of that journey and they just have that sense that it's going to be a lot more admin than they had expected, what can we say to them?
They're right. It is. It's like you say, it's that second job you didn't apply for, you didn't expect, you aren't necessarily very good at, but you are thrust into a world where you are navigating a team of people that you have no authority over. Yeah. Because all these clinicians and practitioners across SEN, social care and health, you're not line managing anybody,
of course,
but in order to support your young person or your child, you are required to navigate, coordinate a completely siloed system.
So is it the form that's the problem, or is it the fear of the form that's the problem?
The fear of the form weighs heavy, much, much heavier. And I do have a really strict 24-hour turnaround. Unless something really can't do anything about it, then I'm really conscious that the weight of the to be done is so much heavier than the doing. So you just sit down, unless you really can't, just sit down, smash it out. Good enough is what we're going for, not brilliant. Good enough, as much cutting and pasting as you possibly can, because you've bound to have written it at least 100 times before.
I was going to say, most of
already.
It is just asking the same questions on every form that we've been asked before.
Yeah. And then postbox, celebrate, gin, tonic, ice, no matter what time of day it is.
Done that by 10 o'clock.
All good. Like a hot potato. It comes in, deal with it, out. It's got to be done.
That's not my strategy.
No.
Because I sit with
What's yours?
I sit with it for ages.
Yeah.
I still haven't applied for DLA because that form it terrifies
it's 56
me.
pages.
It terrifies me. So I think, for the little things, I'm completely with you. If I need to book an appointment, I do that as soon as I get the letter. Anything else, I do sit on it for quite a long time because there's that perfection that I need to do the best I can possibly do. And just fitting that in. Well, I do. I feel it. It's internal. It's internal.
Do you think with those letters, though, Sam, you've said there about leaving the DLA one, and is that because you've got to reflect on your child in the worst possible light, which is slightly different to filling out a form that might be just a little bit more like information that's factual? That's not that it's not factual on a DLA form, but what I mean is like, what height are they? What weight are they? What those kinds of questions, which are irrefutable.
Yeah, completely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's the fear of having to represent my child in a way that isn't necessarily the way that she is. We are having to present our children in the worst possible day. So it's not just I have to present her in that way. It's my misunderstanding maybe of how to present her. And I think, until now I've not known where to go to help me to get that appropriate level of information.
There's a guilt. There's like a shame in sort of presenting a version of your child that doesn't sit comfortably with you. It is the version of your child, but in you create this little micro environment in your home, don't you? Where everybody is able to be themselves, and we make that that's normal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We're not about accommodating. We are about normalizing the variety and the diversity of all of those things. And then we are asked to present people that we love more than anything in the world in a way that looks stark and brutal and sad, and you are tapping into those feelings that, let's be honest, we all have at 2:00 in the morning. It would be easier if, and maybe it, and I want to protect them from. And so it's not that we're not having those feelings or emotions, but writing something in black and white, seeing that letter in black and white in the conversation that you've had, that you bore witness to, but it's so much more stark when it's etched into a piece of paper, and even worse when you've etched it.
And for you, with a child with complex needs, you know it from both sides because you're a nurse and you've come from the other side. What has that been like for you?
I think it's really complicated when so the research is out there around the well-being and the sort of the stress and the fatigue and the exhaustion around parenting somebody with a very complex disability. Yes, there is the impairment side of things. So my son uses a wheelchair all the time. He is fed through a tube in his stomach. He is registered blind and visually impaired. He is he is hoisted for all his transfers and needs 2 people to move anywhere. And if he needs his nose itched, then the chances are he might be able to do it a little bit, but someone else will
How many forms does that take?
Well, I sat down in 2020 and wrote out all the people I needed to communicate with about my eldest son, and over 80. 80. Because some of them are the person on the telephone who's finding out about the syringe delivery, or the email around the payroll, or maybe it's the engineer who comes every 6 months to do the hoist. He's coming tomorrow, by the way.
That's all on you.
Yeah, it's all cool. It all comes through. If you see the image, there's it's like me and him in the middle, and there are these spokes, and it's like the spokes of a wheel, because the crossover is so minimal.
What made you do that? What made you draw that
The
up?
enormity of it. I think
Were you trying to process something?
I train professionals in communicating with families like mine, and I don't think they understand the enormity of their little piece in the puzzle. I don't think they understand. And I see it. I see the kind of expression when I'm doing training, and I'm explaining the micro of my life. And then I'm saying, when you tell me, can you just do this? Just remember the pads for school tomorrow. It's not.
It's one ask.
It's one thing. It's just one thing. Why can't you just? And it's because it's one more thing. It's always one more thing. In the training I talk to, I'm on some really dodgy supermarket sweep, except everybody else is chucking stuff in my trolley. The portage worker, the dietitian, the physio, the OT, just do this, just do that, just do the other. And I get to the checkout, and it's that embarrassing, awkward moment when, I haven't got the money, I haven't got the energy, the capacity, the wherewithal to get this over the checkout. I'm going to have to leave stuff behind. And then you go to sleep every night with this constant juggle. Did I leave the stuff out of today that's actually going to make a difference long term?
Yeah.
Is this going to have a lifelong impact on my child because I didn't do that 15 minutes physio?
That's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
I think for many of us who have neurodivergent children, we are so used to the answer being no.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easier, because you've got children with physical and neurodivergent situations going on, is it easier to get a yes if your child's disability is visible?
In some scenarios. So we have this lovely social care, healthcare ping pong we like to play.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to, say you need a toilet seat. for your young person. And they're like, okay, well, toilet seat at school, that would be the physio and OT from the school, and the health authority, the ICB, most likely. They'd potentially, but then education would have to pay for the equipment.
So that's multiple emails and letters.
And navigating. And then, but actually, well, obviously, if he's having a toilet seat at school, he should have one at home. Oh, that's a different team. That's the local authority.
Goodness gracious.
That's a different occupational therapist. So, and you can end up, I sometimes feel like with my eldest son, we ended up in this gap where the cash-strapped services are looking and thinking, who can we ask to pay for that bit? But it's
passing
not
the
us.
buck.
Yeah, completely passing the buck, adding it on. So I think you can find yourself in the gaps.
So can I ask a
massively.
question? Actually, this is of both of you, actually. I'm going to relate a story that happened to me. So I was really fighting for more hours on the EHCP for one of my children.
Mhm.
And it was a really long time coming. And in the meantime, there were just so many things going wrong with the school. At school, they weren't understanding it. Not a good experience, good school experience. I was mistakenly sent an email by the head teacher that was meant to go to the Senko. It said, "Dear Senko, I suggest that we ignore Mrs. Grant's emails. You don't have to answer Mrs. Grant's emails. I suggest we stand well back and watch the fireworks go off." And it was sent to me by mistake. And I actually felt quite grateful because I kind of thought that's what they were being
doing.
like. And then I had proof because it was sitting on my desk.
That's shocking.
But have you guys experienced, obviously not an email like that necessarily, but where you're not being, you're filling out all the forms, but you're not being listened.
Yeah.
You're not being
to.
believed. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's the, especially if your child presents in one way, in one circumstance and one way at home, it is that fear of not being believed. And it's that, so I've not personally experienced that too much yet. She's still very young. We've still got time. But absolutely, I know people who have experienced it, or even to the sort of degree of questioning whether the support is really needed. And I think that's when it becomes a problem, doesn't it? Because you know as a parent the support really is needed. But then if they're questioning, why do they need it? And you're having to provide, it's that burden of proof again, isn't it? You're writing it all down on these forms. You're doing all of the work. You're doing all of the right things. Yeah. But then if you're not believed, where does that leave you?
Have you always been believed? Everyone's just done what you've needed?
I think we were the last to know, to spot it. They walk, they talk, they don't need blended food.
I see. So for you, yeah.
And they just like us. That's normal.
Funny that.
So actually my 18-year-old who's studying at Warwick doing psychology and did really well, but didn't get any real support massively at school until maybe year 8 or 9. And that, for me, that was a big, I've missed something here. I have been, and probably framed lots of stuff as trauma, sort of realizing that he had a really complicated life. He had a child, a really profound early years where he'd wake up in the morning and it was his grandparents in his mum and dad's bed because they had rushed off to hospital for a seizure or whatever with his brother, and wondering, was his brother going to be around, and those sort of things. So I think we did get him support. We got him kind of pastoral support stuff, but kind of the dyslexia, the ADHD, the autism may have been
because you put it in the trauma box.
They put it in the trauma box, and also he was okay, like a version of okay. He was really bright, but he was average enough that no one really picked anything up, and we were maybe slightly distracted. So there is a guilt with that. There is a guilt, and he likes to milk it. Absolutely.
I mean, as he should.
As he should. He has professed to writing some books at the minute. There is a series titled "My Mum's Epic Fails,"
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's
really.
a catchy
He
title.
has a lot. He has a lot of content in there. The one that he likes to lead with is, I think it must have been about his 9th birthday. He went to school. There's an order to which you can eat a packed lunchbox. Okay,
Yeah.
there's rules.
Yeah.
You don't get to eat the biscuit and the crisps until you've had the fruit and the roll.
Yeah.
On his birthday, came home, opened the packed lunchbox. I know it's your birthday, but the roll is still in. He was like, look underneath it. It's blue. And I sent him to school on his birthday with absolutely bright blue mold. And I was like, oh.
It's a rite of passage, I
It
think, for a
is.
busy
I
parent.
just, and also it's content. It's content for his book.
He's going to have lots to write in that book about mouldy
How many
sandwiches.
chapters have we got?
Oh,
You know,
it's well, it's not just him.
ongoing.
So my eldest, I can't stand. I got an email on the way here about flipping World Book Day, and
Which
but
they
I
tell you
I'd
about the day
made-
before, and you have
exactly.
to create an
Or
incredible
we've just missed
outfit.
6 of the emails that
Yeah.
reminded us,
Yeah.
whichever. So I'd done this outfit. I'd actually made the effort. It was red, and I remember it being red and white or whatever. And he went off, my eldest, onto his transport, and I got this lovely message from the school saying it was great to see Sam dressed up in the bloody theme for the day, which is tomorrow.
Do you not like, just shake it off as, oh, that was practice run, dress rehearsal.
So do I send him in again with it? Yeah, that's me to a T, unfortunately.
But then
Like I
life
say.
goes on, doesn't it? And all of these things that we have to do in terms of the admin and the EHCPs and the DLA forms and all of those other organisations and kind of contractors, whoever we have to be involved in. That's all on top of just normal life, right?
I know.
Just having to go to clubs and having
You've still
World
got a
Book Day.
mortgage. You've
Yes.
still got to pay
Do your
for
own life.
bills.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
still
yeah.
got to.
You've got other forms. There's just so many forms. We're drowning in it. We are. But what actually helps? This is what we need today in this podcast. What are the practical tools that can help make this bearable?
Well, I have my magic wand.
Yeah, come
No,
on now.
absolutely no idea.
Organise us.
So I do think taking photos of documents that you need, I always opt for the digital above the paper these days. That's also surreptitiously, partly because then you have a trail for when you're complaining.
Yes.
And you've got the email trail sitting there. I think things shifted for me. I wrote a book 10 years ago called The Skies I'm Under. And it was, the title's taken from the Mumford & Sons song. And it was all about me having spent the first years of my son's life trying to live a life that I imagined I was going to have and not the one that I was
You were
actually living.
having, yeah.
And there was a click and not a all fixed kind of moment, but a shift whereby I was like, no, this is the landscape. These are the skies. This is my view. And I get to choose whether I fight and rail against it or whether I sit in it. There was a wall, and I drove my son into Great Ormond Street Hospital. I can't even remember one of the roads that we drove in on. There was a big side of a house that had what's it called? Spray painted. What's
Graffiti?
that called? Graffiti.
That's the word.
There was a wall that had graffiti on the side of it that said, "Sorry, the life you ordered is no longer in stock."
Wow. On the way to Gosh.
On the way to Gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, "You're all right, love."
A bit on the nose, that. Thank you.
Exactly. But it's true. It's like you can spend so much energy on fighting a life that you expected to have, or you can stop and sit and decide, like with your kids, decide which battles are the ones you're going to choose. And I found so early on that I was fighting injustices and falling down these rabbit warrens of rights and wrongs. And I had to stop and really address, where are my values as an individual, as a family? What is it we want to really prioritize, and what do I need to do to make that happen? And I just had to let go of some of the failings, the inconsistencies, because everything comes at a cost. I only have a certain number of hours. I only have a certain number of Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. And I either spend it doing this and think nothing's going to change, or I take control of what I can control. So choosing the life I want, that I have, the values that I want to underpin that, and then spending the energy and focus on those things.
But you are sending your children for at least 6 hours a day into an environment where they may be really drowning.
Yeah.
And then the local authorities say they're not going to assess your child, or the local authorities say we don't agree with your EHCP application. In fact, you're going to have to take it to tribunal. These are not things we can just go,
No.
I'm just going to park it, are they?
No, but those are the things that you grab onto.
Yeah.
Because that stuff matters. And you make the sacrifices, to grab hold of those things. And we will walk over hot coals for our kids. So we will find the legislation. We will know what is needed. We will use AI. We will do the things that we need to make sure that, and AI is great. Like, you write a ranty, sweary, outrageous email.
Make this professional.
Exactly. Get it all off your chest, like some unpaid therapeutic scenario, and then ask AI to take out and make this sound a little friendlier.
What about for parents that don't even know where to start with that, though? They've just had the school perhaps applied for the EHCP, it's been knocked back, and now it's on you to go to court. Most parents are just going to think, I'm not ready for this. Like, how do I do that?
I think that's the biggest scandal of how our special educational needs services work. That I think they function and are funded on the expectation there's a bunch of people that are not going to have the energy or capacity to do anything about it. So there are, forums and websites, and there are places that people can go and get support. But it's tough. It is really tough. It's really tough when, like I said, in those early days, whether it's really complex, like you say, with your neurodivergent children, and like you say, going into a scenario. I mean, we have a special needs service in our schools that is founded on watching them fail before they get help.
Right.
Like you have
to fail.
Baked
You have to prove it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's baked in that we need to traumatize our children at least 3 times before the support comes into place. How have we allowed that how have we made that? We've normalized. I wrote a blog recently and sort of described this kind of abusive relationship. You kind of, if you were thinking about because abuse doesn't have to be violent, does it? It can be coercive. Mm-hmm. It can be controlling. It can be gaslighting.
So this is administrative abuse.
Yeah, it is. The thing is, because we are in a situation, all of us are totally dependent on these individuals and services to make our lives livable. That's gaslighting.
I think what concerns me, I don't know how you feel about this, obviously with your husband being a GP, you being a nurse, what concerns me about that is the long-term projections for those children, because if early intervention doesn't happen, they don't get the help at school, they are more likely to be absent from school, they are more likely to need assisted living, they're more likely to be on PIP.
Yeah.
And therefore, what you're going to spend on that child lifelong because they haven't had an education it's not warranted. If you just invested in the early stuff, perhaps some of that other stuff wouldn't be needed.
It's so short-sighted, but that's you pinpoint exactly the failings of that siloed system. Like I said, we have a special educational needs, we have a social care service, and we have a healthcare service. And we don't, if I'm trying to get the health, I've got this friend, Sophie, who desperately wanted a fancy wheelchair where she could stand up. It was like, could go from sitting to standing.
Those, yes.
So she could go and stand at the bar with her mates. Brilliant. Wheelchair service? Absolutely not. That's far too much money. But obviously within her EHCP, there was the requirement for her to have standing occur every day. She has 1 or 2 PAs supporting her every day. So instead of funding the wheelchair that would do the standing and sitting, they built a room onto her mainstream school, put in ceiling track hoists, and transported with 2 PAs every day the standing frame to and from school every day.
We're lost for words.
because we don't have an overall
Computer says no, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's because my admin for my son is I've got to hold together all of the pieces. I've got to see.
How do you do it? Just tell us how you do that. How you do that? Like, because you've got to follow up. You got to. How do you do it? What's your method?
Answer it when it comes. Decide whether it's important enough. And I did an interview on my podcast a while ago with Tracy Huggins, and she talked about becoming a nodding dog to the system.
What's that?
And I was like, when you realise that you have spent however many years of your life, when the appointment comes and they say you need to be somewhere at 3:00 on Tuesday, and you're like, oh, I can't really do 3. I'm going to have to do 3:00 on Tuesday, or else they might not get their speech and language therapy appointment again. But if I do 3:00 on Tuesday, that means my other child's not going to get to their play date that we've had planned for the last 3 weeks. And actually, my husband was supposed to be finishing work late that day, so I was always going to finish early. But
I feel like you've been looking at my life without me knowing.
But you skew it all to make it fit.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, no, like I can't do that time. Give me another time.
And do they?
Sometimes. But then you decide, is this something that's going to change things or not?
Is this the hill I'm going to die on?
It's because
Right.
and I absolutely have got it wrong sometimes. Many times I've got it wrong. But you control the things that you can control. And actually nobody can make you go to an appointment.
Then
You do run the risk of being gaslit into saying that you're being non-compliant and you're not being
This
great
is
and
exactly
whatever
where I
else.
was going to go, is that stereotype of the difficult parent, that stereotype of the awkward parent. That, I mean, you know, how do we get away from that? Or do we just embrace it and say, well, I'm not, know that we're not being awkward. We are advocating and we're battling against systems and structures that aren't necessarily helpful.
There are probably different versions of me. So there are, and like when I used to work in clinic as a nurse, then I put my uniform on and I went in and I had a different persona. And even now when I'm going and doing training, I bother to brush my hair and put makeup on. Do I when I'm just in the office on my own? Possibly not.
Right.
Elasticated waist all the way. But you kind of put on
You
a
actually
different...
get trousers on?
I know. But you have these personas, don't you? And I think sometimes I do the same with the admin stuff. And I do the same with there is a version and I choose times that it's done. I'm giving it this amount of time and that's it.
Okay.
And I also will choose to have out of office hours.
I was going to say,
so I have at the bottom,
yeah.
I have at the bottom of my email saying, I do not work Wednesdays. And I'm here, but I do not work.
So you do take a rest. Do we ever get any respite?
I don't look. It doesn't get done. No, everybody else has a day off. Why don't? And I got that from. I was presenting. I did some work up in Hull, with a parent carer forum up there, and one of the parents was like, "I take Fridays off," and I was like, "Of course you should take a day off." Mm. Of course we should.
But what about if Friday is your only day off from your nursing career? And also people might have, like you have multiple children with multiple forms.
So I choose the times. My 10-year-old does loads of swimming. So much swimming. So I will be tomorrow morning between 5:30 and 7 by a sweaty, sticky, in the morning, this is 5:30 till 7 in the morning. I will be sitting in a sweaty, sticky swimming pool. And that's when I will do the admin for the kids and the life.
Yeah.
And then and I kind of know, part of it is knowing in my head that if anything comes today, I've got tomorrow morning to do it. So I choose the time. That's when it's done.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work, but I try. That's
that
try to
level
do.
of structure is something that I really try to bring in. It's something that I do at work. I'm, have very structured and I know how long something's going to take me, and I put that in my diary and that's it. And that is something that I am having to bring into home.
Yeah.
And I do get some people say to me, like, we don't work that way. That isn't the way that our family works. We just go with the flow. And I'm thinking, well,
That's a luxury.
if I went with the flow,
Nothing would get done.
nothing would ever get done. And, I have a calendar on my phone. I have a calendar that my children can see that's a visual calendar that tells them when things are going to happen. It's then up to me to decide when to tell them appointments are coming up.
Yeah.
Because, if I give them a month's
Too much
notice,
run up.
it's too much if I don't give them enough. So it is that structure that has to come into it. It does become, as Carrie said at the beginning, a full-time job.
And those values are underpinned by the needs of the people in. So there's values around, like, I really value my child getting out and about and doing creative things, or they really love the sports, or whatever it might be. But it's also the values of I want less structure at certain times. I want to be able to be creative. I want to be able to get some exercise done. I want to have dancing in the kitchen at least one morning in a week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At least once a day.
Yeah.
I mean, several times a day.
I see, but if you have a husband who's like, where's all the noise? Stop all the noise.
Yeah. Give him some ear defenders. He'll be fine.
We're all good.
So, question. Let's just say for a slightly older child who's late diagnosed, they've gone to secondary school, things have started to fall apart. You mentioned about your child in year 7 and 8. Quite often, this is a pattern, right? You're asked, what do you need? What does your child need?
It's
That
so
can be a
hard.
terrifying question.
Yeah.
How do we get more genned up on what our children need?
Peers. I don't know the other answer to that, other than people who are further down the road who know more than you. Like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right?
You don't know what
And
you don't know.
like, you're not in school with your child. Your child's in school on their own, and they'll go, what do they need in school? You're like, I don't really know how your school works. I just know they're coming home and melting down, and they're not eating and they're self-harming.
I think there's something really powerful about real clarity. And even if it's the clarity over, this is your world in the school. This is what I'm seeing. Like, if I don't know and you don't know, who do we get that does know? And unfortunately, that ends up potentially being privately funded because, again, we have to have a child that isn't, if someone's self-harming at home, then it's not as bad as if they're throwing chairs at school. Unfortunately.
That's the way it's seen, right?
Yeah.
It's behaviours that challenge.
Yeah.
So the child that's challenging will get the squeaky wheel, right?
I talk about the 5 whys in my training.
Come on, yeah. I'm
So
going to
the
write these down. I love a strategy.
No, it is just simply asking why 5 times. Sorry, it's not that clever.
Okay, why?
Because-
so you're in a meeting, I'm there.
So you're
Senko's in front.
Well, you're just thinking. You're saying my son is not going to school, and they're like, well, we need to, attendance award or something rubbish. And
Rewards
it's like
don't work with these
the question is why? Why is it they're not going to school? Why is the environment at school tricky? It's just digging the why. There's a story that they nearly moved an airport in Washington DC because the Washington Monument was being eroded from the cleaning products taking pigeon poo off. Okay, and they're like, well, because the toxicity of the fumes from the aeroplanes was mixing with this soap, then. Well, they don't have many old things in America, do they? So we need to sort that out. But what they didn't realize, someone says, hold on a second, before we move an airport, why is that happening? Well, we're using the soap because the pigeon poo. Well, why is there so much pigeon poo? Because there's so many pigeons. And why is there so many pigeons? Because of the spiders. Why is there so many spiders? Because of the mites. Why are there so many mites? Because we're lighting up the monument. So we turn the lights of the monument off for longer. There's less mites, there's less spiders, there's less pigeons, there's less poo, there's less washing, there's less erosion.
I know an old woman who swallowed a fly.
Exactly. And so sometimes we are, and I think we do as parents, and as we fight the problem that's in front of us,
Right.
and that's not the thing. So stop, reflect. And that's so hard to do when you are firefighting the rest of your life that is entirely on fire. But stop, reflect. is this the problem? The problem that I'm seeing, what's underneath it? What's the undercurrent of that? What's the undercurrent of that? And what's the undercurrent of that? And are there ways that we can be creatively circumnavigating and tackling some of the core, issues rather than, because the school, and sometimes it is really clear letters saying, this is what you're seeing, but I believe this is what's happening, this is what's happening, this is what's happening because of this structure, because of this, system within the school, because of this. These things I think might make a difference.
Systemic change.
Yeah.
Often. I love that as a parent, you have that ability to get in there and have that agency. I think for many parents, they struggle to really feel that they have any agency.
Yeah.
And parents are either told, there's too interfering, or just can't engage those parents.
No, I know.
Like, hang on a minute.
And sometimes
You can't be both things.
but sometimes you are both because you get so exhausted by trying to advocate so much that you're just like, do you know what? I can't.
Because both of them are trauma responses. So both, we are traumatized by the perpetual battle fighting, and we either go into that fight mode, or actually we go into that fawn mode where we just kind of please everyone and keep everyone quiet and keep people on our side and whatever, or flop or freeze.
Flop is a new one.
Yeah, so it's
Flight, freeze, fawn, and flop.
Yeah, 5 Fs.
Our community's found a new one. I love it.
So flop, whereas freeze is like, flop is like disengaged.
That's
done.
me. I'm just dead.
Done.
A dead ant.
Done. Yeah. Yeah. But all of them are trauma responses.
Can I ask, so you said about the power of copy and paste earlier, and I love that. And I've just never thought of doing that. But that is something that's so important to do when you filled in a few forms. Yeah. Where can people go to start, like to before we've got to the point where we've got a bank of evidence? Where can people go?
So there is things called one-page profiles that you will have known from your kids, and you can get longer hospital-type passports. I've just created for a service up in Vermont in the USA for their parents form around communicating for that. One's for them that includes like the cheat sheet, stuff I've got to remember when we suddenly have to go into hospital, people that we need to contact if things have changed, like the medical people, but also has a summary of the medical stuff. And we get to inject some of our personality. Rather than it being completely hospital guided, we get to say, it's really important they have this cuddly toy. It's really important that this duvet goes in with them. It's really important that we do this level, so we get to inject the personality. So there are passports out there. There are Sam's passport's now like 38 pages long, but it includes on the back, because we did have many years of ending up on ambulances and going into hospital, that it's got, I had photocopied it's got his medical, it's got the meds, it's got his medical history, it's got what we're most worried about or concerned about or prioritizing now. And that one is handed over. The folder with all the minor details they get to look at, but there is a sheet that I will hand the doctor or the clinician, whoever it is, that says you can keep that. And partly from a trauma perspective, it's really important. I have been in so many appointments where I turn into that disengaged, flopped version of myself because I have being asked to go through my son's traumatic birth, talk about the day that he had his first seizure, talk about the ITU admission, and it is re-triggering and re-traumatizing again and again. And you can even use, I've worked with many clinicians who actually sit down with their parents now and write those things out for them, with them. And then they can say, this is my son's loved one's child's history. I'm not repeating this stuff because I find it really tricky. But if there's anything more than that you want to know,
Cerebra
then please
also
ask me.
has some advice on this, right?
They
Would you know about that, Sam?
Yeah. So they have a bank of templates that you can use to complete. They also have the legal advice service that they offer. When you've got no idea where to go and how to go about it, just having a bit of a guide, a bit of a template. So yeah, absolutely. Cerebra are a perfect place to be going for this.
Yeah. And the AI.
And AI. I have to say, I was hearing someone the other day saying, whatever you do not use AI.
Okay, so the not to use AI for add the technical bits, but if you write a summary of this date, this operation, this date, this operation, this date, this operation, and say, format this for something that I can present to doctors, it fixes it for you.
Lovely.
So you don't need to do any of the spacing and the
Yes.
headings and the whatever.
You're
Just
doing the human parts.
dump the
and then
information
allowing
and let
AI.
somebody else to format it and fix it.
Okay. And we see this advocacy every single week in the messages we get from you. That's what this next bit is all about. This is where we pass the mic to you. First, we're going to hear from Mike from Tutor Doctor, who has some tips and myth busting on EHCPs.
So my name's Mike Richmond Coggan. I'm the owner and franchisee of Tutor Doctor Leeds Northwest. So one of the most common questions I get asked when encountering EHCPs is, does my child need a diagnosis before I can make an EHCP application? Now, the answer is no. You don't need a diagnosis. An EHCP is based on need and not on diagnosis. So if a child's needs are not being met within the education setting that they're at, they can then ask for a needs assessment, and if that needs assessment is showing that they are not getting their needs met, then they will be able to apply for an EHCP and begin that process of establishing what reasonable adjustments could be made within that setting, or whether an alternative setting is more appropriate. When parents have begun that process, they start to look at the costs involved, and they start to worry about that. And often they'll get told that the school needs to spend around £6,000 on that student before the EHCP can be activated. Again, that is just an urban myth. It's not true. There is no minimum spend associated with that support. It is a case of the child's needs, and if those needs are not being met, then there is justification for putting a plan in place. Common pitfalls, I mean, there's lots, and part of it is it feels like the social care sector and the health sector and the education sector are not all communicating effectively. So when those plans are being written, there's 3 different inputs at least, and the health can include 6 or 7 different practitioners. So the input coming into that EHCP is very backdated in terms of the way it's organised. You can't just do it online on a laptop and everyone piles in on one document. It's much slower and much more tedious than that. I think that's a big barrier. So they're not completed in a timely fashion because they have to go around all these different people who are contributing to the plan. Parents will write outcomes that aren't specific enough or aren't necessarily tailored to that individual student's needs. They're just tailored to the age appropriate level or something. So a child may be in year 10 or year 11 coming up to GCSEs, but GCSE qualifications might not be suitable for that child. But because all other children are doing them, the parent doesn't know alternative options. They end up not completing the form in a way that best meets the needs of the child.
That really comes back to not knowing what you don't know, doesn't it? And it's something we all experience, I'd imagine.
And it's choosing. I'm reading The Chimp Paradox with my 10-year-old and how to exercise his chimp and the kind of big feelings and things like that. And I think there is also choosing the places where you get your advice. Those people and those forums that aren't like, yeah, that's absolutely outrageous, you need to like this. But people who will give you really careful, measured, thoughtful, this worked for me. This is, take this here. Especially when it comes to language around EHCPs and needs-based. It's so tricky when it's founded on kids failing.
So thanks to Mike there. And now we've got some community messages from parents about their experiences with life admin.
Hello, my name's Julia and I'm Saffron's mum. Saffron's 15. She's got charge syndrome. So on the subject of life admin, Saf's medical notes actually come in a shopping trolley. And whenever we see a new specialist, a new doctor, they always say, well, I'm just going to spend 10 minutes flicking through Saf's notes. And I just always laugh inside because I know that someone's going to come in a minute with this shopping trolley, and I'm going to be called back in to give them a rundown on what's gone on, because it's impossible. It's an impossible task to look at Saffron's medical notes. But it can just be psychologically exhausting, and it can be depressing. I used to have to go to lots of multi-agency meetings, and there could be 20 people in the room. And I'd sort of turn up pretty tired from getting Saf into the car with a wheelchair, with a suction machine, with feeding kit, get into places which, for some inexplicable reason wouldn't be, there might not be a lift, or it would be out of order. So I'd always sort of turn up sweating profusely, shattered, turning up at meetings with Saffron, and people saying, "Oh, is there anyone who could have looked after Saffron?" Well, no, there isn't. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought her. So you always start off on a bit of a negative note. I think, top tips would be get a shelf set aside, get yourself some files and some binders. Keep abreast of all the paperwork, because it's like having horrendous homework, and if you don't keep up with it, it's gonna become too overwhelming.
I'm the parent of two girls. My eldest girl, who is now 22, nearly 23, has autism, EUPD, which is unstable or emotionally unstable personality disorder, and went through a number of difficulties all through her childhood, with school and normal day-to-day life. So kind of lived the journey of trying to get support and help myself and my wife. Your reality of living with somebody with a disability or a mental health issue or whatever is very different to everybody else's reality. So when events came up like family weddings, family birthdays, even holidays, whatever came up, quite often we would never go as a set of four. We would either take two cars if we went, or, my wife, mother, daughter would go, and myself and Erin wouldn't. We explained to our friends and our family that, look, these things didn't work for Erin, so therefore we were not going to put her in those situations where things were going to end badly. So we did that, and that worked, and it worked. It worked okay for us. Of course, it's always very difficult, because you get to the point where Erin must have been about maybe 10 years old the last time we had a family vacation. Sienna would have been about 7. But you have to make your reality work. Now, I never blame Michelle. Michelle never blamed myself. We always knew that it was just one of those things. So we never kind of took it out on each other, no matter how frustrated we ever got. But what we would always do is Michelle would have 1 or 2 little mini breaks with her friends every year. I would have a golfing trip or a mini break with my friends every year. And there would be weekends where no matter what went on, we wouldn't phone each other. So no matter what was going on at home, we would have that space to kind of switch off, relax, and go through a bit of normality. So I guess my advice to whomever is, you just have to realize that you have to work to whatever the capabilities of your son, daughter, or young person, whoever you're taking care of, can actually cope with. And if that means you can't go to a wedding, or you can't go on vacation, or you can't do normal things as a family, even going out for dinner, if you can't do it, don't do it. Don't put yourselves under that level of pressure and stress and anxiety that just boils over into things at home or something else.
So that was a great top tip there. Have you got a top tip, both of you?
I think it's like Julia said, my son's notes are also in a very large, it's these metal
Shopping trolleys.
They do look like shopping trolleys. And I think it's about summarizing what you feel is important for your child and having it crafted in a way, 2 ways. One that's a piece of paper that you can hand over and say, there you go. But also one way that's electronic that I can cut and paste and put into documents, that I'm not having to go over it again and again and again.
Really good tip.
I think my tip would be, I'm just really picking up on Julia's, you go into a meeting. I mean, goodness, if there were 20 people in the room, I'd be so pleased because it would mean that everyone had attended. But my thing is always to look for the person in the room that is the decision maker, the person in the room out those 20 who can get some leverage going, the person in the room that is going to say, Carrie, we don't normally do this, but... That's my favourite sentence.
Yeah.
We don't normally do this, but, because that's the person that will affect change. No change has ever happened in the history of humankind unless someone has decided to change the way we do the rules, has broken the rules or changed the rules. So I'm always looking for that person that's prepared to look for the other way through that isn't normally done.
Yeah. I think I would say try not to do it on your own.
Yeah, allies.
Tap into communities. And if you don't have any allies in person, there are online communities as well. Just scrolling through Instagram, as I'm sure many parents have done when a child won't sleep, finding a community of other send parents who have travelled this road before, accessing services like Cerebra and being able to know that you're not alone. When we're not alone. We feel alone so much of the time, but we are not alone.
Yeah. There's also obviously the services like Sendias, which is there for parents to get through those forms. That's what they exist for.
And there are professionals, practitioners who are working incredibly hard. And if you have a sea of 20 people, the joy of seeing one face that you know has looked after your child, that you know has looked him in the eyes and seen his smile and experienced the beauty of him and not this black and white portrayal of all he can't do and won't, is unable to do. And so shoring up, write out that network of people. There may be some you're like, that relationship is rubbish and I'm disregarding, like will function, but it's only ever going to be functionable. But there may be some people who get you, who get your family, who care, and
the humanity.
Strengthen those.
I've literally just written the word humanity down. Yeah.
Strengthen those bonds so that when you walk into that meeting, you don't feel alone either.
Thank you so much, Rachel. If you'd like to send us an email or community message, please send it to calm@cerebra.org.uk. We might be able to use it in a future episode. Thank you so much, Rachel. You were amazing and funny.
So my husband needs to know that
she's proper funny.
I'm really funny. I might make that his ringtone.
Yeah. That's it for our deep dive into the paperwork mountain. And if you're currently buried under a pile of forms, just take it one page at a time. You're doing an incredible job navigating a system that wasn't built to be easy, that's for sure. Don't forget that Cerebra is a charity that exists because of people like you. By fundraising, whether it's a coffee morning, a sponsored walk, or a one-off donation, you're making sure these toolkits and legal guides stay free for every family that needs them. There are lots of toolkits and guides online at cerebra.org.uk, and we'll put the links in the episode's show notes. Take care of yourselves and remember, you are not on your own.
See you next time.
See you next time.